Hey, everybody. Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go.
On today's show, we have one of the two greatest, maybe the three greatest Thacker men in the Central Florida area. I have no idea what I'm talking. I don't know how many Thacker men. As soon as I launched down the road of that compliment, I was like, I'm offending wives, I'm offending cousins, I'm offending everybody here. But the Thacker family, if you listen to the show, are one of my all-time favorites. Greg Thacker is a friend of mine, and John Thacker, who I actually have known longer than Greg Thacker, was nice enough to come by today and talk law, talk music, talk fatherhood, talk whatever. So thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Good to see you, man.
So you came, your offices are Clearwater, Tarpon Springs, Largo-ish somewhere?
It's Clearwater. So,
Okay.
if you go across the bridge, Gulf to Bay, you just sort of head towards the water. Right before you hit the Clearwater Courthouse there, it's like 2 blocks, there away. So you just zip right there, man. Courthouse is right there. It's a pretty convenient spot.
And you're at least second generation family law attorney.
I don't. So once you go past my dad, generation-wise, it's difficult for me to tell you what everybody else did, other than they were all lawyers pretty much, My grandma, my dad's mother, did a little bit of it. My grandfather was in practice with his father.
Holy shit, I didn't realize this.
Dude, it's crazy.
So you're fourth generation at least.
At least, right?
Wow.
And that was back in like the 50s. And I was rummaging through my office. This was about a year ago, man. You won't believe this. And I found this brief stashed away. It was little, it's like 8 inches by 4 inch, little green brief. It was all ratty looking. I was like, what is this, right? It's my grandfather and his father. It's a U.S. Supreme Court brief that they both wrote.
Oh my God.
For some case in 1955.
What was the subject matter?
Okay, it's good. Illegal transportation of black bass.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
black bass matters.
It does. Who can argue, right?
Yeah.
And so I read this thing, and this story gets even crazier, man. If I can divulge here, my dad's father, my grandfather, actually passed away in 1958.
Okay.
When my dad was 9 years old and his sisters were really young. And he was a big time World War II hero. He flew like 52 missions in World War II and came back after the war, but then passed away later. Very young, 40 years of age. And my dad wrote a book about his dad last year.
You're saying this now is reminding me of things that Greg has told me. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the ways that ties into this brief story is in the process of researching for my dad's book. We had some family members. My wife's sister, Jolene, her twin sister, is really into like history and U.S. history and like military history and that stuff. And she found online a recording of my grandfather arguing this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court in 1956, right?
That's badass.
So my dad and his sisters hadn't heard their dad's voice in over 60 years. I'd never heard it before. Right. My brother never heard it before.
Right.
And so when like she found this, like, that spread like wildfire through the family, and everybody had to say like, everyone, you got to have a seat for this, listen to this, it was pretty wild, man.
That's so cool. Did you frame the brief, or do you have it like kept in any kind of no?
It's somewhere at the office where I can pull it out.
Door wedged open or something.
It's a weird looking thing, man. It's got this really specific like type and size to it. Oh yeah.
Back then it was like, phosphates or slate or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't your laptop of today.
That's right.
So, I at some point, do you think you can convince your dad to come over here and do this?
Oh, that's a good, as long as it's not like on a Friday. Because, he likes
I just want to meet the man responsible for the two of you.
I think the chances are good. I got to, this is going to go so well today that, I'm going to play in the recording and he's going to be like, I need to get a note, Josh.
Dad, I need you to make the drive. I'll feed you. I'll imbibe you, whatever it is that you need for me to ply you with to get you to come over the bridge.
I think it'd be a good thing.
I got questions about what your sons are, the choices that they're making with their life. So anyway, so I'm trying to, I never realize how old I am until something puts it in context. And I'll give you an example that will lead me into an example that's more germane to you. Is I had Liz Jack in here. She just won seat for judge over here, over there. But I said, whose spot are you filling? And she said, Thane Covert. And I was like, what's he doing? She's like, he's retiring. I was like, how can he retire? He just became a judge. Right. He became a judge when I left the state attorney's office in 2005. And so that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But in my mind, literally, Thane's been on the bench for like 2 years.
That's how it is in my mind too. In fact, I didn't even know he was retiring until you just mentioned it. So,
yeah. So getting that back to you, I think there was a long time that I didn't know that you and Greg were two different people. I think there was a period of time because I knew you. I think you were either right when I left the state or just right after I left the state. But I did have reason to have interaction with you. And then at some point, I think I would run into Greg and think Greg was you. This would happen. And then over time, he and I would share a lot of viewpoints. And then I said something about Teen Wolf 2 that just set him down.
Oh, you got to be careful.
Down a rabbit hole. I've learned my
tough
lesson.
conversation there. Yeah.
That triggered us going to lunch. And then at lunch, I learned his alter ego and the whole double life that he leads.
Yeah.
Then I became his stalker, and I was like the first 2 weeks after that, like I didn't leave him alone. I was he's like, dude, this guy's got to stop texting me. But anyway, so when did you start at the state attorney's office?
Okay. So I started there January of 2005.
So we had from January to May, we worked there together.
So that sounds right.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, man, it's weird the things you remember. But I remember at some point, I don't know what division I was in or whatever, but I remember I would regularly get files that had your name on them. Probably because it was.
Can you fix this? You fucked it up.
Well, I mean, I think it was just because I inherited one of your spots at some point, and they had
go into Division A, or were you in Division E, or were you?
So I think that might have been in misdemeanor. So in misdemeanor, I had Judge Horrocks for most of the time.
So you were in Division E.
Yeah. So they just didn't re-sticker it yet. You know?
Yeah. I had stayed in. I got sworn in by Amy. So I started Division E. Under Mike Andrews.
Right.
I got sworn in Division E, Amy Williams, and then Horrocks took over when I was up in Peters in Division A.
Gotcha. There you go. So I did my time with Judge Horrocks, and then a little bit of time with Judge Levine. I did North County Traffic Court for a while. Okay. And in felonies, I was Division B, who started with Judge Baird. Until, I had Judge Baird maybe 6 months, and then Judge Day just got elected. And I had Judge Day for about the final year I was there. I left in January of 2008.
How many years was that then total? Right at about 3.
It was exactly 3.
That's what I did too. Yeah. Mine to the day was
me too.
It was a Friday. It was so funny. I always tell this story. I decided, I went up. I don't know. Did you have to go up to Bernie's office?
No, let me think what I did. I think I did. Yeah, I think I did do that.
I talked to Bernie twice in 3 years there.
Yeah.
And I went up there and walked in, and you're not supposed to smoke in a government building, but it smelled like someone had been smoking cigarettes.
Very strange.
Yeah, I don't know how that. I don't know if it's the paint they chose or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he's like, he just looked at like my resignation letter, and he goes, "You going out on your own?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Ballsy move," and that was the extent of that conversation.
Yeah.
But Allison Ridenauer, who was in Division A with me, that afternoon referred me a case. Saturday morning, I had to come in for weekend advisories after packing up my desk Friday afternoon.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
And I was like, this is so bizarre. And so that was in May. Dina and I were engaged to get married July 3rd. And I had this plan. I needed to make $5,000 between May 8th of 2005 and July 3rd. And I was like, it's going to be tough. And that Monday, I got hired on a 5-count L&L. Now, this was in 2005, so this is before the market crash.
Yeah.
And at that time, lewd and lascivious or any of that, you were getting $25,000, $30,000.
Right.
And so I was like, this is the best thing ever. Why did I do this right out of law school? This is amazing. And so what was funny to me is, and I've told the story before, that case, the mother of the children who was the complainant had like 3 ex-husbands, and she had accused every one of her ex-husbands of a similar thing.
Yeah.
And so like the Monday or Tuesday after the Friday I left the state attorney's office, I called and I was on the phone with, I think it was Mike Halkitis. And I was like, you realize that there's some credibility issues here with the complainant. And he goes, you defense counsel are all the same. And I was like, I haven't even got my last check from Bernie yet. And already I'm getting painted with that brush.
Yeah, that's tough.
So
that's tough.
Did you go right out to work with your dad or did you?
Yeah, after I left the state.
Was that always the plan?
Not really,
Okay.
man. It was very like organic and natural. It's really crazy to think about. He never pressured me or Greg to work for him, and out of law school, he said, you can come.
Candidly, financially, it's probably not a smart move for him.
Well,
I mean, now it probably is, but at least early on,
there's no question. I agree.
Yeah.
And it, at the beginning, he's like, you'd be better here if you go out and you work for someone else for a while, work for Bernie or work with Bob Dillinger or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I did the prosecution clinic, while I was in law school. And met some people at the state, and I thought, this is a pretty cool place. So that was really great advice, And I mean, I tell people to this day, I said, do that, meet people. I mean, you know how it is, man. Everybody you worked with back then is still around. They're in different roles, and you still kind of see them in different contexts.
I'm still getting sunk by Dave Tobias constantly. I just got a juvenile case, and he just took over the juvenile division. It's like, nope, this is going up to felony. I was like, and normally, like somebody else, I was like, can I just get him on the phone? But Dave, I know, is like, a marble wall. You're just not gonna convince him of anything.
I think once you're there long enough too, you kind of become that person, in some way or another. Yeah.
Did you go to Stetson?
Yep, Stetson.
Okay. Yeah. Where'd you go to undergrad?
UF undergrad.
You did?
Yeah.
You did. Now, Greg went to UCF?
Greg went to UCF.
You went to UF. Mm-hmm. Okay. How was that?
So it was great. So at UF, I was a computer major, primarily.
You're a bright guy. I mean, you're a sharp guy. And also I have, we'll get to this at some point, but you're quite a established musician, even though you don't do it publicly.
It's very kind of you to say.
Well, I'm just wondering. Let's go back even further, and then we'll matriculate to Gainesville. So, you're a year older than Greg?
16 months.
And it's just the two of you,
just
right?
Just the two of us, man.
Okay, so two brothers. Were you guys close as little kids?
Oh, yeah.
Or did you pick on each other, beat each other up? How did that
go? Not to an abnormal degree.
Okay.
I mean, we hung out, man. We played together, played video games together. All that
traditional little brother, big brother relationship?
It was good. It was good, man.
And who picked up the guitar first?
So, okay, good story. It happened at the same time.
Was it the guitar that
No,
okay.
No. So my dad's guitar, we were talking earlier. My dad's got this vintage, 63 Fender Jazzmaster that he bought for like $50 when he was 13 or something, and he's kept it his whole life. And, when I was growing up, he would play this guitar. He'd play, Paint It Black by the Stones all the time, some Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young tunes, all that kind of stuff. So we were around it,
Yeah.
And, it was this, I remember it, man. It was December of 1994. So I would have been almost 15 and Greg would have been 12, I guess. And we wanted all this junk for Christmas, we asked for all this stuff. And that Christmas, my dad bought me a bass guitar,
Ooh.
A Fender Precision bass.
Yeah.
Yep. Blue, still have it.
You do?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And he bought Greg a Fender. It was a 40th anniversary Stratocaster. So I guess it was 40th anniversary in 1994.
Was it red or white?
Red.
Yep.
And it was made in USA. I mean, beautiful. It's still my primary guitar. So that was kind of his, but we shared, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, I'm playing bass. I happened to pick up the bass. I remember, man, Longview by Green Day just came out.
Green Day is a seminal work in the Thacker.
No question.
Yeah.
Right.
Music Exodus. Yeah.
Really, really bass prominent song too. So I was like, well, I'm going to start by learning this song, you know? So I pulled out my new bass and I was like, I figured it out. I called Greg, hey man, listen to this, and it just went from there, man. And Greg I wasn't really, that interested in music until I got that guitar, I mean, you know about my proclivities, before Greg talked about some of the strange stuff that I used to listen to when I was really young. But, when I got my guitar, I started to really listen to.
Is it John
Yeah, John Cicada, man. It's like
I don't fault you for that.
Hey, listen, man. If you go back today, and your listeners, you go back and you check out the old Cicada hits from
He's
the
got some
89.
golden pipes on him.
Dude, the pipes. Oh my God.
I'm a huge, and I don't know that they're you can equate them to each other, but I'm a huge Sade fan.
Oh yeah.
I had my Sade shirt on the other day, and my buddy Andrew, who's like a local death metal icon, he and I can talk ad nauseum about Sade. So
sure.
I have no judgment on my end about but anyway, so
yeah. So
I digress.
That's where I got into rock and roll, man. And I got really into back in '94 as Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, all that kind of stuff.
He said you kind of trended a little bit more grungy metally than he did.
Yes, no question.
He was more pop punk kind of whatever, and you're a little bit harder edged.
That's fair to say. I agree with that. And I mellowed out more in my old age.
Did you have long hair?
No.
No.
I
wonder what the most, what the craziest version of you was like.
Boy, that's a good question. I don't even know if I know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I started a band, in high school, right? And I went to high school in South St. Pete at Lakewood High.
You went to Lakewood?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever live on the South?
No. I went to the CAT program. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But my band was with two guys. I think they both started in the magnet program, but then, quote unquote, transitioned into the normal school,
into the general population.
Right. Yeah. Both great guys, but two of those guys, and I knew a drummer who lived close to me in Clearwater where I lived.
Right.
And we started this band and we were only 15.
What was the name?
Madcap.
Oh. I like it.
Yeah, that was the band.
That could play in a number of different genres.
Some of the ideas I had back then, I can't come close to that level of creativity now. It's really weird.
But you got Mad Season, which is grunge. You got Mad Ball, which is hardcore.
Yeah.
There's probably other ones I'm missing. Go ahead.
We would play out all the time,
originals or covers?
Originals.
Okay.
And it was sort of grunge sound and stuff, but we played at places, man. We played at State Theater. We played
at Fun Junction Pizza.
Oh yeah, it's one of our first gigs. We played with Greg's band there.
Did you really?
Yeah, the Simpletons.
That was where I would go to see all the local punk bands. Was in that back room at Fun Junction.
Buddy, when Greg's band and my band played there, it was probably late '95. The place was so crowded.
Oh yeah.
That everybody filtered out the back door and was hanging out. There were 100 people outside. I mean, as a kid, a 15-year-old kid, all of our songs were. Well, I shouldn't say.
I don't think I've ever discussed Fun Junction in the musical context until this very moment.
Yeah.
I don't even think that I remembered it until this just came up. Anyway.
I remember it as Junction Pizza. That's what people used to call it because I didn't live in St. Pete, but we played there all the time. And, dude, there's nothing better. All your friends go, everybody's having fun. You're playing your music. You feel like a rock star, and that's as close to.
So I went to St. Pete High for my first 2 years and I went to Northeast High for my second 2 years. And St. Pete High, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like this is true with the IB program at St. Pete High. There was a lot of wealthy white kids who played really well at music there.
Okay.
So there was a lot of bands there. Dr. Clemowish, who I've had on the show here, he's played in the Hip Abduction and Danfield and all these bands locally. He's a world-class paddleboarder, allergist, Harvard graduate.
Yeah.
Just just feel like a waste of space next to him. But then there was another guy. I want to say his name was Hunter Herring. He was in a band Down by Law that was actually on Epitaph.
Wow.
Yeah, he went there. And so anyways, that was a thing at St. Pete High, is we'd all go watch the bands at Junction Pizza. It was routinely a who's who of St. Pete High students who were playing there.
That's cool,
so
man.
yeah,
that's cool.
I don't even think that's there anymore. But
I think it closed somewhat recently. I think maybe in the past 5 or 10 years it closed. There's a place called the Refuge on 9th on Martin Luther King, and that's not there anymore either. But that was really the place that. And State Theater, we had a show at the State Theater that that's pretty badass. Was amazing. Yeah,
I've seen some pretty rad shows at the State Theater. I saw the last tour of Dillinger Escape Plan. I saw them at State Theater.
Amazing.
First time I saw Mastodon was at State Theater. The Bravery, who kind of artistically you can have a discussion on, but that first album was pretty awesome. Saw them there.
Cool.
Yeah. Now it's called the Florida Cigar.
Have you been in there since they did that?
I haven't. I know they're trying to sell it as it's still cool, but it's not getting a lot of good press.
That sucks. I saw the most recent concert I went to was when Wolfface opened for Andrew WK there.
Oh, that's right. I've heard about
And
that.
that was a hot show, man.
I
it was
bet.
amazing.
He DJ'd. Who did I see that he DJ'd for? He DJ'd, was it?
I heard this, but I can't. It's not coming to my mind either.
It might have been the show. No. It might have been. It was either a comedy show that he DJ'd for or something. But yeah, no, he's interesting. I dig him.
It was he was an amazing concert. About a year before that, I saw Frank Black. Well, no, it was probably about 5 years before that. I saw Frank Black and the Catholics before the Pixies got back together.
Frank Black's brother lives in St. Pete, and we represented him.
Greg told me that.
Yes.
I was on a boat. My mind about exploded, man.
Yes. I've represented members or relationships to members of Cheap Trick, the Pixies, Morbid Angel, and I think some other ones that I'm not thinking of.
Was it the same brother who at least at some point had a bar in Boston that was totally devoted to the Pixies? I mean, the Pixies for me are
one of your big ones.
Yeah, top tier for sure.
Well, we'll talk music specifically as we get through this. Cool, so, anyways, high school band, Madcap. Was that the only band? Was there bands after that?
Bands after, man. I went to UF, and
UF's got such an amazing music scene there that I
man,
wasn't even really ever aware of until somewhat recently.
I think now it is. So when I went there first, right?
Have you read that book on the Gainesville punk scene?
I don't think so. No,
I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Maybe I know some of those guys. The guy
because Greg does.
I used to hang out all the time with that guy Roger from Less Than Jake.
Oh, sure,
right?
Yeah.
Really nice guy.
I saw them at Janice a bunch of times.
Yeah, really nice guy. They were really big back in the mid '90s. When I was there, but what I remember when I went to Gainesville, in terms of the music, most people were into Dave Matthews, that type of stuff. There was a band called Big Sky back then that everybody talked about. Uh-huh. And I remember going to the Alatra Music Harvest one year where they played. And I was like, God bless them. They had their own thing going, but it sounded like Dave Matthews to me. And I was like, where's the I don't know, I'd come from, doing kind of the edgier thing down here. And what I ended up doing myself musically is I just met up with these friends who were in this really bad sort of new metal-ish type of band. And I liked these guys and they needed a bass player.
Sure.
And I hung out with them. I was part of that band for maybe 9 months and it was fun. But after that, I got in with these guys who were in who had a really good cover band where every weekend they'd go to Chiefland or go to Trenton.
Oh, yeah.
And play these bars, these biker bars.
Covers what covers?
Whatever, man. What people wanted to drink beer and dance to, you know what I mean? Tom Petty or whatever. And they'd play every Friday and Saturday I would do this. And it'd be from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
On bass or guitar?
Bass.
Okay.
But I'd make $300 in cash every night. You know what I mean? And
this was in college?
In college, right? Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to have the Bright Futures scholarship. So I'm man, this is just play money for me and I'll do the rockin' at night and whatever. So I did that for most of college,
That's awesome.
And it was fun. I mean, I got tired of it after a while playing the same songs over and over, but I did it for a while. It was cool. And in law school, I was in a band for a while, and it all kind of ended for me when my daughter was born. You know what I mean?
No, you can. I'll show you pictures of me before kids and after kids. Right. I didn't have a gray on my head. I was probably about 80 pounds lighter. Right. I hear you. So, and you have two or three?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So now was Stetson your only choice, or did you kind of? Is that where your dad went, or where did he go?
Yeah, he did go to Stetson. Okay. And so it wasn't my only choice. When I graduated college, I took a semester off before I did anything. What I did, my folks have about 100 acres in North Florida.
I know it very
house,
well.
Right?
I keep getting offers to someday go there when it's not,
full of bugs and hot and 100 degrees.
And also there's disease and all this other shit that we're dealing with.
Well, the good news about being up there is you'll be in a house and the next closest house is 3 miles away. You know what I mean? As long as the people you're with are okay, it's all good. But
show me the drone videos that he does out there. It's pretty rad.
So I lived up there by myself, I just needed.
You lived up there during that time?
Yeah, during
So
the
you're like
semester.
Thoreau for
Sort
a year.
of. It was like that. Yeah. I'd have to like come out in the morning. I worked at like a call center for Dell computers, like answering phones, like just have a job and do something. But like I had a little studio set up there where I'd like make my own songs, record my own music, like at night or whatever.
Does that exist somewhere?
The pieces do. You know, it's been broken down and shifted around.
I'll need to figure out if you can transfer me some files.
Yeah, it's well, you know, back then that it was like the technology for recording back then versus like where it is today. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? I had an old computer that was, you know, long obsolete, but I go out there, I live by myself there. And I don't really know why I did it other than like back then I didn't have a whole lot of direction. You know, I realized my senior year of college that like, listen, you know, I play a lot of video games. I've been into computers my whole life. I don't want to do it as my career and just be staring at a screen all the time. You know, I want to do something where I want to interact with people. And so that's, I might as well go to law school. One, because my parents or anyone was, you need to do this. So I was like, okay, I'll apply to some law schools. And like something happened where I didn't get my application into UF by the deadline. I mean, that's where my headspace was back then. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do Stetson. I'm glad I did. You know what I mean?
Were you and Greg ever there at the same time?
Yes. But Greg started Stetson in the night program. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. The one right by here. And the way that works is, you know, you do a year in the night program and then you can transition into the regular. And that's what he did. And when he did that, we lived together for a while with his now wife, Lauren. You know, the three of us lived together in Gulfport.
Oh, wow.
While I was like finishing.
That must have been fun.
It was cool. Yeah.
I want to go back though to this time in the cabin.
Yeah.
You were there by yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a good time in your life?
Yeah.
Was that a dark time in your life? Did you do well on your own, or did you drive yourself nuts? Were you sending mail bombs to people? What was your?
So I'm fundamentally, man, I'm a pretty introverted guy. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that like selfish, but like I'm perfectly happy being by myself, alone to my own thoughts, you know, making things happen, you know? And so like, I loved it. Because there's people, how could you do that? You know what I mean?
So I'm the same way. And I wonder if it's for the same reason, is I have figured out that by nature of being an only child, by nature of having parents that were pretty much a lot older than my friends' parents, and having parents that suffered with depression and drinking, that being exposed to that at a young age made me highly, highly empathetic.
Yeah.
And I've often used the analogy when talking with people or therapists that when I'm around a group of people, it's like 20 TVs are on at one time.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing all of it and I'm having trouble processing any of it. So for me to relax as being away from people, because I cannot help but internalize or soak up their craziness. So that's why for me, it's not that I don't like people or whatever. It's just that I literally can't be around a lot of them and not somehow internalize it and have it kind of, you know, harsh me in some way.
No question.
Is that similar to what your situation is?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, the way that manifests itself to me in daily life today, you know, I do what you do, man. You know, I'm talking to people all day long. You know what I mean? And I'm happy to do it. And I'm not like, you know, feeling depressed or anxious when I do it. But I know, and my body's like, and my mind is trained this way that like when the day's over,
turn off.
I can't have it anymore. You know what I mean? And
it's hard because you come home and your wife's got questions and your kids want to talk about this other stuff. And, you know, all the time my wife's like, I told you that. We already talked about this. I was like, did you talk about it to me within the first hour I got home from the office? Because if you did, I can tell you I retained none of it. Not because I disrespect her or because I'm not listening, but literally there's an hour plus or minus when I get home where it's almost like PTSD. You know, people say, how was your day? I was like, I can't even tell you what happened today. I don't remember what path I drove home. I don't, you know, something happens where it's just blocked out of my mind.
It's really great, man. I'm very lucky because, you know, my wife, she'll ask me how my day was, you know, and I'll tell her, but she knows like, you know,
some space.
Right. And a lot of times like, when I feel, you know, want to talk to her about something that happened or whatever, you know, I'll bring it up and like, she's always great. She's always super engaging and she's interested, but she never like, you know, like pushes on. There's so much stuff, man. You know how it is that happens in a given day. You know, doing family law, that sort of stuff. Like you could tell stories about it for the rest of the day when you go home. But she's been great, and you know I do love being with my kids, and like you know when my kids are 9 and 7, so they're still pretty young. So like making the shift to like communicate on their level is a good thing. It's kind of a stress reliever thing. All they want to do is like play and play video games with me, or like you know run around and go on a bike ride or whatever, or come up with crazy ideas. You know, and that's a good change of pace.
Is it 2 girls?
I have a son and a daughter. My daughter Piper is 9 and my son Noah is 7.
Are they close with Greg's kids? Do they hang out?
Oh yeah.
I know you guys just had kind of some family trips that you guys just went on that looked pretty awesome.
We just went to the Keys together, you know, and did all that stuff.
They were somewhere. They went to like North Carolina and then followed by the Keys, and then didn't you did 2 other things back to back, or am I misremembering?
It was kind of crazy that, you know, obviously this year was kind of up in the air. We originally were going to do a big family trip to Europe, you know, for like 2.5 weeks or something like that. And of course that got canceled. So what Greg did is he was like, well, I'm going to keep my 2.5 weeks. I'm going to like squeeze something in, you know, before we do the Keys trip as a family. So he went and saw our cousin up there, hung out, and that looked great. But I was like, well, you know, I'll stay here and work, and, you know, we'll just make a week out of it. But we do things all the time together, man. We go to the place up north, and my folks also have a place on the Homosassa River. You know, we'll go up there, go fishing,
awesome.
Scalloping,
that's
that
awesome.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
Now, your time at the state, do you look back on that? I mean, obviously you described it as good training, but was that a bright spot in your career? Or So my experience there is a little bit different. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you might know that I'm somewhat of a liberal person.
Sure.
and at that office, I felt like the odd man out, a lot of times. And so I enjoyed it. I loved doing trials. That was great. But I had trouble making strong relationships with some of the people there.
Right.
You know, luckily my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, you know, we kind of took up most of each other's time there. But, you know, definitely it was fun from the trial, but I never got to do a murder. I got real close there at the end. But as you know, I don't know if you got to do any, but usually what ends up happening is right towards the end of your 3-year mark, you start getting them.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they suck you in. I think like they're like, hey, you want to jump on a murder trial, knowing that it's going to be like 4 years of it's going to get continued and these depositions, and all of a sudden you're there at 7 years and you're unemployable by anybody because you make too much money to get hired on somewhere, but not enough to pay your bills. And you're kind of screwed. You know, I always look at like Tobiason or Rosenwasser or some of these other people who've turned it into a career. I'm like, you're a better man than I. I couldn't do that forever.
I feel the same way. You know, for me, like what made it great in retrospect is, I definitely agree with you that sort of attitude, you know, definitely came down on high at the office. And that was kind of the mentality of the office. But the cool thing for me was like there were so many other people who were my age who were in the same spot in life that I was.
Were you married at that point?
No. Well, no. Let me think. Hold on. I got to think.
Yes.
I was.
Don't get this wrong. Don't get this wrong.
Yeah, this is bad.
We'll edit this out.
So I was married in November of 2005, right? So I got
married. You got married the same year I did.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right. So you got an anniversary coming up.
Dude, big one.
15th.
Big anniversary.
All right.
Yeah. Got to put some thought into that.
Get her like a bedazzled face mask and like cook out in the backyard. That's like the best thing that you can do for her.
Let me take some notes here.
Yeah.
I got to figure something out, man. I'm just really bad.
Let me give you. I don't know what you have near you. I think you have the Safety Harbor Spa near you. My wife loves Spa Jardin over here on Gandy.
Oh.
And I get her like a full day deal. It's like, I'll take the kids, you go. And that, I don't know your wife, but that tends to make me happy.
There have been many times where I've said, listen, you've had a rough week. I'm going to take the kids and hit the road. Yeah. And there's no, well, where are you going?
Yeah, push back.
What time are you going to get back?
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
You know, it's good. And I like having a little time.
Counter.
Yeah. I can pitch it to the kids like, hey, it's a dad party weekend, you know? And they're like, and we'll go and drive up to the farmhouse, cook some steaks or whatever it is. It's good.
So married 2005. So that means that you were married pretty much the entirety of your time at the state.
Yeah.
And then when you came out and worked at your dad's, did Greg stay back a little bit long. Did you guys overlap at all at the state?
Yeah. He started there in middle of '06. So he was like transitioning into felonies, like right around the time I was leaving.
Okay.
So he did his 3 years too.
Okay.
And he came into work with my dad about a year and a half. So he's always been, I guess, about a year and a half behind me.
Yeah.
Career-wise.
How was that working with your dad and your brother?
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, the Greg, I mean, you know, we're a close family. We've never had, you know, office drama like you sometimes hear. It just doesn't work for some people, you know?
Do you guys all work on the same cases, or did you guys each do your own cases?
Both. So the way it worked is Greg and I would have a ton of cases that dad didn't even know about and wouldn't have any involvement in, but he would have some cases where like, oh, I'm working this case with Greg or I'm working this case with John. And there was never any like meetings where we'd go in and divvy things up. It just worked out, you know, based
you guys
upon
had a shorthand of vocabulary with
that's
each other.
right. Yeah.
Now, I never had a case with your dad. I do remember I had one with you because I remember mediating it with Courtney Bowes.
Yeah, I remember that case.
I have vague recollection of it. I never had a case with your dad, but I hear he's a hard ass.
That's what I'm told.
Yeah. And it's funny because I guess I can get glimpses of you and Greg having that gear, but that's not the world you occupy generally. So that's why I'm interested to kind of meet him and get to know him, because, you know, there's this kind of Pinellas County family law royalty, especially North Pinellas. You kind of hear about, we mentioned Kai Koch earlier, and there's some of these other people that have just been around forever up there. And somehow that was your dad, but I just never cross paths with him. But in any event, where's he at now? I mean, is he thinking at all about slowing down, about retiring, or is he going to do it till the wheels come off?
I don't think that's the case, but right now I don't think, I think he's pretty happy, you know, doing what he's doing. Yeah. And I think that he's good with it until something better comes along. I mean, my dad, my mom, me and my brother kind of know him better than he knows himself in certain ways. And it's like, and I told him just the other day, I was like, well, you got to make sure you do something that stimulates your mind. I mean, he's not the type of guy who can I'll just go fishing every day.
Yeah, you can't close up shop. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. And even if it's not like, you know, practicing law or doing family law or whatever it is, like, he's just the type, he'll drive my mom crazy if he's just sitting around the house all day, you know? So doing something at his pace is, you know, he's earned the right to do whatever the heck he wants. Now? Well, I mean, you know, he goes up.
Does he play still or no?
Not really that much. I mean, he still, you know, listens to music a lot, but he's mostly into like, you know, going fishing. You know, I said they had the place in Homosassa. They're up there just about every weekend this time of year.
Right.
And there's all kinds of grass flats up there. You can go fishing for redfish and all that sort of stuff. And that's, and you know, they have friends come and visit. And
I hear your mom's a blast.
Yeah, she's
Greg type. Is it watching football or something? Like she
loses it, man.
She loves to. She has the most bizarre cheers for whatever the sport is.
Yeah.
She'll just start screaming at the TV.
She's been watching Bucks games since like the 70s, man. Yeah. And she's just kind of become this creature when she watches these games where, like, you know, she's got, you know, her little, you know, dip put out for everybody to eat. You know, everybody's got their drinks, and man, she just loses it.
That's awesome.
You know, she gets into it, man.
That's awesome.
You know?
So, two little girls. Now, is your wife, is she working or is she?
She's stay-at-home mom.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. I met her. We met at International Mall.
That's right,
one day.
yeah.
You guys were knocking around there. So, music. Let's talk music a little bit. So, Pixies is a big one for you.
Yeah.
Can you kind of I usually find that at least for my friends, it starts somewhere around 7th grade. I don't know why, but around 7th grade, you start to become familiar with music. It might have been a little bit earlier. And for me, rap really became big around that time.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was Rob Bass, Public Enemy came out, and then it was Two Live Crew. Like all that was right at that time when I was in 7th grade. So I remember most of my friends at school had all these tapes with these covers on them that you're like, oh my, they're almost like porno magazines.
Yeah.
And I liked Public Enemy. I liked Rob Bass, but I wasn't huge into rap. They had Run DMC, and that was around the time with Aerosmith. But 7th, 8th grade for me was Appetite for Destruction.
Yeah.
And Justice for All.
Yeah.
And then freshman high school was Pearl Jam, Nirvana.
Yeah.
You know, Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of overlapped in that whole time frame.
Right.
So tell me about your kind of entry point?
All right. So when I first started, around the time that I got my first guitar, that's when I started listening to this stuff mostly. And, that was kind of the height of the grunge era, but that did lead me to like heavy metal.
How old are you right now?
I'm 41.
Okay.
So Injustice for All is probably my favorite metal record of all time. I mean, I think it's pretty much unbeatable. I got real
interesting as a bass player that's your favorite record of all time, since it's widely criticized as either not having bass on it or no audible bass on it. It
pretty much has no audible bass on it. The thing that appealed to me about it is there was definitely a high level of like technical.
I've only recently heard it referred to as prog thrash, and it's a great description. Right. I had never thought of it in such terms before, but I mean, you were getting 8, 9, 10-minute long songs. Yeah,
with multiple time signatures and changes and stuff that was crazy just to be crazy. And that really appealed to me, and the energy level of it was just really, really high. So I got into metal and like I got into Metallica and stuff like that. And even like some, I'd listen to like some heavier stuff than that from time to time.
Talk to me about heavier stuff. Like, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I love talking about this stuff, man. Like probably my favorite heavy metal band is Pantera.
Okay.
Like some of the records they cut to me, like, Far Beyond Driven is just like, it's so heavy.
Broken. That song, that's like if I go to the gym, if I'm going for a run, if I, getting pumped up for a trial or whatever, that's that. And I'm not a huge Pantera fan. Yeah. Their talents musically are undeniable. Right. But that was my favorite album. They had the Black Sabbath cover on there,
exactly.
Planet Caravan, and they had. Yeah. So, and now I've heard them recently, and this is another phrase that I didn't know at the time, but called groove metal. Yeah. And they would put Sepultura in this. Yes. In this category, Pantera, and so anyway,
I was listening to a lot of Sepultura back then, like Chaos AD and Roots came out back then, and those were great. I listened to a lot of other stuff too, though, man. I was into like Radiohead has always been one of my favorite bands ever since OK Computer came out.
Did you work with Chris Clemowish at all?
I don't think so.
Because he might have been after you, but he's actually Pat, the guy I mentioned earlier's brother. He was a prosecutor over there in Pinellas County, and he's a huge metalhead. I saw him at the Slayer farewell tour. I was just wondering if you guys knew each other.
No, I don't think so.
But okay, so Sepultura, Pantera. Yeah. What else?
So, so that was kind of like what I was listening to in terms of heavy music.
Sure.
I've always liked the Beatles, classic rock, man. I listened to a lot of that stuff. And then like I said, like Radiohead and like a lot of stuff that spun off. Not from Radiohead, like,
what's your favorite Radiohead album? It'll tell me everything I need to know about you.
All right. Today, I'd probably have to say In Rainbows.
Okay.
Right? With Kid A probably being a very close second. Those two are probably interchangeable for me.
I think Kid A is more esoteric than In Rainbows. I think In Rainbows is probably the best representation of all the different phases that they've had in one album. Yeah. I will tell you that their last work, and I just posted something about this the other day. I normally stress does not bother me. Like I can sleep. Doesn't matter how life is going. I can sleep. But lately, for whatever reason, I've not been sleeping. And for some reason, Moonshaped Pool came on, and I started listening to it, and it's a very dreary record, but I was like, this is like the perfect soundtrack for 2020. This album is just dark and foreboding, and I mean all their albums are, but this one specifically I was like, wow, this one's kind of ahead of its time. And then I started to think, I was like, you know what, every one of their albums is ahead of their its time. It doesn't hit or resonate with people until years later. I mean, as much as it resonates originally, it usually ages well.
It takes you a long time to really wrap your head around their records. Yeah. The best example of that is the album before Moonshaped Pool is an album, The King of Limbs, right? Yeah. I bounced off that album, man. I got it when it came out, and I was like, I don't know.
It's got 2 great tracks on there, though.
Right? But these days, I listen to it regularly, and I think some good poppy songs on here. I like it a lot.
Flower, and then there's the other one that's it's real slow. It was in the soundtrack to a movie.
Yeah, I like just about every track on there.
Yeah.
And there's the last song is a song called Separator, which is it's just like a really simple. The best music really, right, is in most good things, I guess, are simple. You know what I mean?
Beatles,
right?
Yeah,
right. And so when Radiohead, who has all the talent in the universe, can like get together and like write like a 3-minute like very simple pop song, I just love that, man.
Yeah.
I love them being able to like bring it in and focus on something that's really straightforward.
Yeah,
even given their history of experimentation.
So Pixies, when did they enter the picture for you?
All right, probably college. So I told you I was into like
they're the seminal college band.
The way it happened with me, and I don't remember any specific moment or anything, but I was loving all these bands that they had inspired, right?
Yeah.
And I never put together that, well, it all really came from the Pixies, and I started listening to them. And, a lot of their stuff's like really lo-fi. So it's kind of hard to like Surfer Rosa is a pretty lo-fi sounding record. I mean, everybody loves how it sounds, but if you're jumping into it, like having, grown up listening to more curated or more processed stuff, it's easy to like not understand it right away.
Did Albini ever produce a Pixies album?
That's the one he did produce.
Okay.
So that's the one that he talks about. He's interviewed these days. Like, I think his quote about that album was, I thought they were a mildly interesting college band. So he like downplays it.
Well, my favorite is that he did, what was it? Jawbox, thinking it was Jawbreaker or vice versa. He's like, I thought it was the other band. I didn't realize it.
I can watch interviews with him all day, but
the birthday story for Greg, right? That Lauren was trying to get him studio time.
Yeah. I've talked with him about that, and he's like, I don't know if that would really work because we got to move all our stuff up there. And I don't, he's got these funny like attitude about it, but it'd probably be pretty cool. I'd love for him to do that. It'd be amazing. And I love like In Utero is my favorite Nirvana album.
Sure.
He produced that and I love the sound of that. But the way it happened with the Pixies was like, I was watching like YouTube videos or something, or maybe it was videos before YouTube. And like, I never saw what the band looked like, and like, Frank Black Francis, back then he was like, a slight, mildly overweight, balding dude wearing flannel shirts, but he'd go onto he'd play these concerts in the UK where 2,000 people would just be losing their minds. And this guy was singing songs that are literally about just like abstract nonsense. And I'm like, what is this guy onto here?
Yeah.
And the bottom line is like, what really appealed to me about them was like, this guy has like, major cojones just to like write these crazy songs and just put it all out there. He's not wearing makeup or doing anything ridiculous. He doesn't even banter with a crowd.
Right.
He just goes out there and rocks it. And I love that, and then you start listening to the songs and you realize these are great pop songs. This guy knows how to write a great tune.
He writes great hooks. His vocals, he's got this register that's kind of singular out there.
Yeah.
Is it Kim Deal's the bass player?
Yeah.
All the musicians in that band are pretty on top of it.
Yeah.
But I know there's literature out there on it. If I ever find myself in retirement or winning the lottery or whatever, I have these little subject matters that I would like to go out and study. But there's a book that I don't think I have it in here that David Byrne wrote, but it's almost on what music does to the brain and what rhythms do and what tones do and what notes do and what time signatures do and what's appealing and what's not appealing and what triggers aggressive behavior and what releases dopamine and all this stuff. And I think I'm saying this as though it's not been studied, and I'm sure it's been studied endlessly with tons of literature on it. But so from my, amateur take on it, I would just love to know, like, some of these people just stumble upon this ability to speak this language innately that they weren't taught per se.
Right.
They just can push a button. And Frank Black is one of these people because as far as a volume of music that he's had, just prolific,
Crazy.
It's like a Bruce Springsteen of or whoever you want to compare him to. And, different albums may have more, merit than others. Some may be kind of, he just needed to get this out of his system type deal, but almost without fail on any of them, there is a skeleton or a structure there that is a masterful understanding of music structure and song structure.
Totally. Absolutely.
And so he just has this way to do it. I don't know what that is. Like, I have like guitar tones that I love. I have certain types of music that I love, and I have this conversation with Greg a lot. But like, do you know who Josh Homme is for Queens of the Stone Age and Caius and all this other stuff? He will play scales and intentionally either leave notes out of it, or he'll play the wrong note in a scale. He plays a lot of minor chords and stuff. And there's an interview where he talks about it, where he's saying it's his bad attempt at playing cabaret on a guitar. But when you listen to it, his solos in these, I just love them. It always just gets me. I love it. I love John Frusciante,
one of my
Chili
favorites,
Peppers.
Absolutely.
His tone, especially on Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Man.
That song specifically, the end of that song where it's like this spiraling circular outro of that song that he plays. That's been forever the golden ring for me of what I want to learn to play on guitar.
I like Sir Psycho Sexy.
Yeah, Sir Psycho Sexy. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Not Blood Sugars.
It's one of those magical.
It's like 3 minutes long,
but it's like that's going to be like playing on loop in my brain probably for the rest of my life.
Yes.
It's one.
Can
of
you
those
play
things.
that?
Yeah,
I can't play that. I want to be able to play that.
I can't play it as well as he can.
Well,
I can show you the bones to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's got the ability. He's so dexterous on the guitar. Like he can take something very simple but add like these flourishes to it that really makes you like
just a little hammer here and there or whatever.
But the dexterity in your fingers and your wrist to be able to pull it off as quickly as he does, nobody can do it like him.
Well, and the other thing that he does, which I think is pretty cool, is I think this came up on Scar Tissue, but one of the everybody would try and play it and they're like, it just doesn't sound right, and they figured out that he was not tuned when he played it. So if you are actually tuned appropriately trying to play that song, it doesn't sound right. And it wasn't like a drop D or some kind of alternative tuning. It was literally out of tune when he was playing it. And I think it was by design, but people have figured out how to fuck up the tuning on their guitar to get it to sound like that song. And
crazy.
I just love stuff like that. And there's another kind of separate part of this discussion with drums. I don't play them at all, but I've started within the past year really following a lot of drummers and listening to different people that I like. And I like a lot of hard and heavy music, but one of my favorites is Dale Crover from the Melvins. He was on the first album of Nirvana. And just stuff that you wouldn't even think of as far as like how far apart your drum heads are, how high your seat is in comparison to your kit, where your cymbals are placed, the angle that they're at, the weight of the sticks that you're using, just all this stuff. And, stretching and breathing, like how important breathing is to drumming. And I just love that all these like intangibles that go into music sounding away. Cause like most of us who play at our best can get to a point where, okay, we can play these songs, but they're taking it to that next, adding something into it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's big for me.
Greg's band, they have, Dan, their drummer, is an amazing drummer. I tell Greg, you're so lucky to have him as your drummer.
They give him so much. They give him so much shit.
I know. Yeah. It's not. If he's listening, you don't deserve it, Dan. You're great.
Oh, you got an ally. Finally, the tide is turning.
Hey, man.
So I went and when I was telling you earlier when they did their what is it called? Liquid Death Mountain Water. When they're doing their jingle, I got to go out to the studio and watch them record it. And I'd never been in studio to watch a band record anything more. So I was like a little kid in a candy store. And I'm like way older than these guys are and stuff. And I'm just, I brought them pizza. I was like, hey guys, thanks for letting me hang out. They're doing their thing. And
like whispering, who's this guy?
Yeah. Well, so I was driving over and I was like, can I bring you any food? And Greg's like, no, don't worry about it. And then like 10 minutes later, he's like, actually, they're hungry. I was like, flip a U-turn, went and bought this huge pizza and brought these 2 liters. And I was like, anyway, so Dan setting up the drums, it was like 3 hours long. I was watching them. I was like, holy shit. And then literally the rest of them in like 5 minutes recorded their parts, Greg banged out the guitar and did the vocals and Ryan's just, he can phone in like these amazing performances. He's like, this savant guitar player. And then obviously Byers is a genius in his own right. But, so I didn't really have any concept of how important to the whole process the drums were.
Yes.
And but he just went in and knocked it out quickly, and it was pretty rad.
It's just I love Greg's Wolfface is
I'll let you do it because he can. You're his bigger brother. I'm always worried about outing him. So
yeah. Well, he may be outed here, but whatever. The thing about it, it's like they're fundamentally pop songs, you know, like, and they're good songs. And when you're playing drums with that kind of music, like, you don't want to get in the way of the song, right? You want to like convey what it is the song is trying to convey without somebody really necessarily thinking, oh, you know, the drummer, you know, felt a need to have a fill here, you know, or whatever it is. And that's really true for all their songs. Like, so it's a way to me of, you know, knowing what not to play. And that's an overused trite thing to say, but really, I think it's really important for drums, particularly when you're playing pop music. You know what I mean? You've got to not interfere with what's trying to be done. Yeah.
There's definitely and this kind of has popped its head out in a number of different ways in my life lately. The concept of editing or curating, whether it's your life, whether it's your possessions, and even an economy of speech, which a podcast is probably not the best place to have a discussion on the brevity of speech. But I was just talking with Greg about this yesterday, these telephone consults that I'm on. And I was like, how many times do you get interrupted? How many times do you get asked a question that you aren't given a chance to answer? Or how much time is there just this filibuster of information? And I have in my personal life, and probably not the best thing for people who want to be around me, but how little can I say to get my point across? Like how, you know, in a lot of ways, what you're talking about with the music is like knowing what isn't important and what is important to kind of get to your goal. I think that's there's something appealing of that concept and its application in all aspects of life for me. I
strive for that, right? Yeah. And I think as lawyers, right, that's what you're always trying to work on. You know, you're a you know, I tell people all the time, like clients, it's like, you know, there's literally an infinite amount of information that you could give me about your life, about your kids or that sort of stuff. And it's like, it's my job to filter all of that down. And I try to tell people typically, I was like, you should be able to summarize your problem in 1 to 2 sentences. Like, try it right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's when people, and some people can do that and some people can't do that. You know, you've represented people, you know, you prep them for a deposition or something and like, hey, look, you know, when you ask this question, you know, think about this, answer it a certain way, that sort of stuff. And you can do that like all day with these people, and they'll never be able to do it. But that's not true for everybody. It's just the way people's minds are. So, you know, having to like, do these Zoom hearings online or whatever, where you might have 45 seconds to say something.
Yeah.
I had a CMC yesterday, right? And it was one of these Hillsborough CMCs where everybody who's set for the CMC is in this Zoom meeting, right? So there's got to be 20 people in this meeting just waiting, you know.
Sure.
Some people don't know how to mute their mics or whatever, you know, so you're dealing with all this stuff. And then when it's your turn, the judge is exhausted having to deal with all of those problems already. So you think, Judge, you know, I better be able to tell her where we're at in 3 or 4 sentences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if she wants to go from there and elaborate on any one of those things, that's cool. But that's where I try to take a lot of pride in that, you know, and I try to tell my clients like, you know, that's why you have me, is so that, you know, you just told me 90 different things, but for this hearing next week, we're going to talk about 3 things.
Right. Yeah.
Because I know the judge won't have time or isn't interested for purposes of that stuff. And certainly I try to apply those skills in everyday. I mean, you know, we're being bombarded by noise in all forms. You know, with you know, social media, the large, you know, major media and all that sort of stuff, and the ability to communicate efficiently and honestly and earnestly, right? You know, I mean,
well, another thing too is emotional intelligence.
Right.
This is another concept for me that has really been a big something that's drawn me to picking it apart and thinking what it means. And in the type of law that we practice, a immature or a not fully developed emotional intelligence is the death knell of a marriage.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking to keep score, if you're looking for revenge, if you're looking to, you know, these types of things that a lot of couples do to each other, especially the ones that find their way into our offices.
Yeah.
It's this undeveloped emotional intelligence to say, what's the bigger picture here? I'll see what clients get upset about. I'll come home and, maybe my wife will be in a mood, or it's the ability to say, she just took care of 2 kids during COVID, taught them virtual schooling, got them lunch. She hasn't had 5 seconds to go to the bathroom.
Right.
So maybe she's not upset at me. Maybe
Totally.
she's just exhausted from the day that she had. So don't take it personally, just whatever. And that's missing a lot in the world.
No question.
It's missing a lot in political discourse. It's missing a lot in the people that are holding office.
Yeah.
There's such this lizard brain that we've all got, and I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
But just kind of, what do they say? You're listening to respond, or you're waiting to. You're not listening. You're waiting to respond, or something like that. These are the types of things that if I'm drawing lines between the similarities of my clients who find their way into my office in a divorce, these are the things that I see. And so that emotional intelligence coupled with how it impacts communication, I just think is so key in every aspect of life.
It's empathy, right?
Empathy.
And like empathy is a quality that you really have to reach a certain level of maturity to understand and make a priority. We have memes today, on social media. There's a meme for everything, and people are so used to, instant gratification. If you want to, you get some information or whatever, you can get it, but there's so little, people have so little patience to slow down and think about, all right, well, is there any level of, legitimacy to this opposing viewpoint?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And even though it's like an all or nothing type of thing. And there's also like this weird thing, at least in my opinion, where, people have a need to, have other people see them as being aligned with the way they think. You know what I mean? Where
I'm probably guilty of all this, by the way.
Look.
I'm just saying.
I probably am too.
You're setting off a lot of alarms on me.
I probably am too.
Yeah.
But my point is, I try to just be conscious of it.
I'm always and this is not good, I don't think, but I am always kind of a mirror of what I'm faced with.
Yeah.
So if I have someone who's coming at me with a considerate point of view and willing to kind of have a nuanced conversation about the gray areas of policy or whatever, I'm more than happy to engage at it. Conversely, if somebody comes at me with snowflake, libtard, echo chamber, groupthink, then I'm going to meet it with equal and opposite. So Rex Blake and I never have an intelligent conversation about politics. It pretty much devolves into name calling almost immediately. But well, so not that I don't necessarily want to end here, but it just kind of popped into my head as we were talking about it. What is it, do you think, that your parents did either intentionally or unintentionally that gave you that empathy or that ability to have some modicum of emotional intelligence? Just think it's an intact family? Do you think it's a family that showed love? Do you think it's because I'm interested in this for 2 reasons. One is what made me, and also what can I do for my children to, have them be.
Yeah, man, that's the goal, right? I try to like instill that in my kids too, and you hope that they pick up some of that. So to answer your question, like all the things you just said, I think are true, but what I think really it is more than anything is respect for other people. When I grew up, it wasn't like I was inundated every day with my parents talking, oh, these people are bad. I can't believe, this group of people, whatever it was, is doing this or whatever, or I never really, they always, both my parents always were respectful of others, even if they disagreed with something about them. And they didn't feel the need to, fix other people, you know what I mean? Or go out there and convince them that, they're wrong and my parents were right or whatever. So I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of respect. I had my grandma, my dad's mom, who passed away herself 2001. So she's been gone a long time now, but she was married to my dad's dad, obviously, who passed away in 1958. Well, she never remarried.
Right. And
she raised those 3 kids by herself.
Wow.
And she became mayor of Kissimmee back in like the early 60s. And she was one of, a very successful female lawyer, in the 50s and 60s.
Sounds like an amazing person.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I was exposed to that type of a person. She's very strong, but she was, if she sat next to you on an airplane, right, she'd know your whole life story by the time you got off the airplane. If you wouldn't sit with her, right, but she sat next to a stranger. How are you? You know, I'm Jess. What's your name? Where were you born? She'd just do that, and people would be like, "What?" You know what I mean?
It's amazing. So thank you for saying that. A couple things that's brought up is, number one is, I'm always amazed in conversations with people. Like, I will almost see how long I can go in a conversation without talking about myself.
I love it. Yeah.
You know, I'm asking. And these people, you know, you'll say something and they'll immediately respond with a 30-minute conversation about what's going on in their life. And not that I do or I don't want to hear it, but, you know, don't you find, that's kind of what happens with these podcasts is, when have you had an hour to talk about yourself that you can think of? Right. You know, there's something cathartic about it. And for me, it's an experience that's enjoyable because I learn things, you know, but people don't get that about conversation anymore. Right. And, you know, I talk about this with this podcast. Who have you talked to for an hour about anything? Yeah. In the past 5 years, 10 years, since the advent of cell phones. That's right. And how much of it is more than just like, where do you want to eat? You know, what are we doing tomorrow? Like, that's the depth of 90% of the communication that you have. You're right. So there's something medicinal or cathartic or, you know, about kind of, you know, learning, taking from someone about themselves and them having the ability to give it to you. But this was the other point. I'm going to blow some smoke up your skirt on this one. Yeah, man. What impresses me, and I think meeting your dad will only cement this further about you and Greg, is you guys are highly intelligent. You guys are very talented in a number of different ways, but zero ego. Oh, and I love that. And I love that so much. I mean, Greg's trying to get back into skateboarding now. So every morning did you see the video from this morning? No, not yet. Oh, he's dropping in now on like 6-foot ramps. And I was like, that's scary as hell. And he's showing me his ollies and he's working on all this other stuff. And I mean, dude's 40 years old. Right. I mean, a broken arm is huge these days, but but his guitar playing, his songwriting, the action figures he builds, and the drones and all this other shit, and then you with the computers and the guitar, and not to mention I don't know if you've surpassed your father, but the one case that I had with you, I mean, you are a high-end family law attorney. You're not some jobber, that just kind of knows the buzzwords and hopes the mediator gets the case past the finish line for him. Well,
thank you very much.
So but you guys are just gracious and humble and no ego, despite having a lot to have that way about you. So
that's very kind of you to say, man. And that's that's a process, man. That's how I want to be thought of by people. I want to be humble, but also be the reason that we practice law really is to help people, man. And and now and then you can't always do it, right?
Right.
But when you can, it's like you got to take that little moment to yourself and say, hey, what you did today meant something to somebody. Or
it doesn't feel like it was family law a lot.
No, so that's why you got to take the moment. You got to really, when it happens, and that it happens, I literally, I'll sit down and I'll say, hey, Tuesday, whatever the day was, you did this good thing, because the last 2 weeks it's been nothing but bad news all the time, which is what you deal with. But you can push through and have those moments, and that to me, as I get older, helping people or making someone else happy in some way, as opposed to just making yourself happy, is the ultimate gratification.
Do you think law is going to be your deal until the end, or do you have aspirations for the bench or politics or a different life altogether?
Yeah. So I've long thought about the bench, but it just hasn't felt like the right time yet for me. Yeah. And I feel like I'll know when it's the right time. You know what I mean? I can't really explain it better than that. About 6 or 7 years ago, I got real close, man. I filled out an application for one of the seats and this or that. And I know a bunch of judges just like you do. And, and some of them, text me something. Oh, now's your time, And I'm like, not quite ready yet, man,
If Brett Semitovich is ready, you're ready.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I'm sorry. That's just my dig at Brett.
I've heard, I don't know him personally. I've heard nothing but great things about him. So
he and Jason Jason Bard also are of the Rex Blake ilk. So
I see.
I butt heads with these people constantly on social media. But well, if you do it, I don't live over there, but I'm happy to, hold signs
Thank
and
you, dude. I
have you
appreciate
on
that.
and all this other stuff. But I think you'd be great. I think you'd be
Josh.
amazing. I
That's
mean,
amazing. Thank you.
both as a prosecutor and then as a family law, I mean, you've got definitely the breadth and the depth of experience. And don't wait for make sure your dad's still around and healthy when you do it. 'Cause you're going to need those old school strings. There was before we had children, I wanted my wife to do it over here because my wife's family are royalty in the Brandon Plant City. She cheered for the Bucks. Her sister cheered for the Bucks. Her dad is an orthodontist for practically everybody. They're all orthodontists, dentists, and all this other stuff. And they're friends with the Gonsmarts and they're all related to this Italian family. And I was like, don't wait too long on this because once all your, the older generation is gone, you don't have that, that weight behind you
You're
that
right.
you would have otherwise.
You're right. I enjoy what I'm doing now, man. And I'm happy right now, and I feel like I'll know. So we'll see. We'll see, man.
I'll leave you with this, and it's me more talking to your dad. So I lost my mom in 2019, and I lost my dad in 2018. And you mentioned earlier having your great grandfather's voice found, and it kills me that I didn't start doing this till after they passed. Because one of my greatest regrets in the world is that I didn't get their voice saved and I didn't get to ask them questions for my kids to hear. I have a couple of voicemails on my cell phone and videos and stuff that I save, but if for no other reason than to just have that for you and for your kids and for everything else, that alone is a big enough reason to do it.
Sure.
So, get on his ass about it.
I'll make it happen.
All right,
you can count on it, man.
Thank you so much, John, for coming over. It was a pleasure. I didn't give you a guitar to play, but maybe next time when you announce unless you want to.
Well, no.
Okay. All right.
There's way too much pressure this moment for me to pick that up.
Well, Jason Bangos can play a U2 song for 10 minutes.
Oh, really? What song did he pick?
Oh, it's an off-brand one. It's it's not one of the bigger ones. He said it and I forgot it, but you're welcome to listen to his podcast.
Yeah, I'll pull that up.
But anyway, thank you so much for coming by.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh.
All right.
Been real, man.